Okay, well, we've got a good group here. We're a couple minutes in, and as you guys know, we like to be timely here. We know you guys have busy lives, things to get. And so let's get this show on the road here. Bryce, I'll let you take it away.
All righty. Well, folks, we're gonna start it the way that we do. We're people of tradition and consistency. So we're gonna ask what wins you've had over this last week.
That was a very deep introduction to wins, and I loved it.
What good things have been going on?
I got one.
Yeah, I think it's Michael. Go ahead.
Our team started our morning win meetings that we kind of had gotten off track. We just have like 5 minutes in the morning where the whole team comes together and we just talk about our wins. It's been going really good since we've gotten back on it, and yeah, so that was a big win for us this week.
Nice.
Come on! That's what I'm talking about. The first of many amazing meetings to come. Keep it up. It is going to change your life. I promise you.
Wow.
I'll say we've been running our weekly meetings weekly, and I feel like it's going to bring a great team. What's the word? Look for collaboration.
Scoot over. You all up in the camera.
Kevin, you speak kindly to your wife.
Kevin, you go back and hit the weights.
So that, and then also like I got back on calling the Dream 100 list. Just so we can go ahead and hire someone. Once I run this, that's my plan, is to hire a new salesperson. But that way, I just feel like we're on the right direction with everything that we're currently working on.
Hey, it's a phenomenal feeling. And one thing I wanted to highlight is she said, we're having our weekly team meetings weekly. And I know that might seem redundant, but I have a lot of clients that are like, oh, we did it once, or, oh, we tried to, or, oh, this person was late, or I was late, or I moving it around. No, you got to have the weekly team meetings weekly, same time, same place. That consistency is what is going to get you the results you're looking for. Anybody else have a win they want to share? Just unmute and fire away.
I just want to share, we had from the Google local service that, just a regular free listing. So we got like a $10,000 call from it. It was 1 day job, $10,000 just from some emergency call that came in. And then there's $6,000 job, all in 1 day. So $16,000 day yesterday. So I like days like that. Those are good days.
Those are good days indeed.
And I want to be clear, that came from his Google business listing. And this guy is consistent views. And that's how you're able to get jobs like that. So huge win. Congratulations there, Bobby.
Thank you.
Any other wins?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fairly new to the program, but this week pretty much I got some Google reviews. So we weren't working on that before, and we got, I think, 4, and I requested a couple more. So it's exciting that we saw the reviews come in. So that was cool.
Yes.
Come on.
Yeah,
Love
many of the people
that.
here can attest to the difference that's going to make, short term and long term, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we had 5 in the last like 3-4 years, and just in this week we got another 4. So that's like,
double.
Yes.
double in just a few days. So that's good, So, and I've been asking for more, so I'm expecting a lot more coming in.
Yep.
Never let go.
So
never take the foot off the gas. Yes, go on.
Excuse me. To add to our weekly meetings, we actually been using it to kind of explain or showcase how we install what we do. So it's a weekly way of kind of implementing our systems and how we like to install, as opposed to, oh, well, I've been doing this for 20 plus years. This is what I want to do. So it's just another way for not just my techs, but also our sales team to grow and learn exactly what is it that we do and why are we charging what we're charging.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is standard setting. That is future oriented as well. That's awesome.
Way to go.
Cool.
Too many wins. We got to stop now. No more wins.
Okay, we're done. Awesome.
Just
Well, as you saw in the emails, I'm going to be leading us in our talk this morning, but I want to start off first with a question. We've already kind of been hovering around the topic, conveniently enough, but what has been for you guys, and I do want feedback on this, the hardest part or most difficult part about bringing on employees or even subcontractors, just managing teams?
Don't bring on family and friends. Don't do it.
Kevin, you sound like you're
Everyone-
talking out of experience. Could you
do it.
tell us a story?
Oh no. We ain't got,
Like, do not make me relive that.
we ain't got enough time. No. Just
No.
don't. I know
It's
sounds
actually
crazy,
never
but
worked out for me either. Yeah.
Yeah.
it just
Everybody
doesn't-
tries it at one point. I think Travis, you were saying that with a client last week. Seems like everyone tries it, but everyone learns.
I also would say just learning how to have those tough conversations. I feel like that's something that we're learning on how to do. I think we talked about it last week, maybe. But just learning how to have those tough conversations with employees, either to push them up or get them out the door.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Absolutely. There's an art form to that, and it's something to always be improving and learning. It's something that I have noticed that in my life as a coach, I'm really good about explaining how to have those conversations. And then in my personal life, I forget everything that I know. And I'm like, wow, there's more effective ways of going about this conversation than the way I just did. And so it's something to always remind yourself of and always working towards. Anybody else?
Yeah, actually, I have a good experience of hiring a relative. Actually, currently, our company's best employee is my co-sister. It's my wife's brother's wife, so it's like co-sister we call.
Oh, that's far enough.
And what we said, and what we when she came on board, it's been 3 years now. I said when you come into office, you're an employee and I'm a boss. There's no relationship and everything out of the door. And when I go to her place or when she comes to her place, we're relatives now. It's like I serve her and I treat her like a guest. But when it comes to the office, like the family is out of the window. So just come here and just do business. And that has worked pretty well. Like right day one,
Yes.
I'm your boss, I'm the boss, and you're an employee, and you work. So that
Clear
works.
boundaries.
Yeah.
Clear
Yes.
boundaries that we honor and respect. That's the way to go about it. Great
The
advice there.
Yeah.
Power of expectations right there. We would, we definitely don't have any kind of hiring family here at Redmond Growth. No, I'm just kidding. Tim and Robert. For those who didn't know, Robert Redmond is Tim's son. And they had that very clear boundary expectation setting conversation before they even entertained working together. So if you are going to make it work, you've definitely got to have that. I love that, Victor. Well said.
Yeah, that's awesome. All right. Those are all the sorts of things and we're already starting to have the talk that I was hoping to have. So this is perfect. I'm very pleased. I feel like I've achieved the goal already, but let's get into what I want to cover with you guys today. Does anybody just real quick know the concept of stoicism? Like the philosophy of stoicism? Michael, you want to tell us just real quick kind of what that is?
Well, from my understanding, and hopefully I don't sound like a nitwit, but to be stoic is like to not complain about the things that are happening with yourself, and to essentially just keep pushing forward, and not showing when you're hurt or complaining about stuff, for sure.
Yeah. You did not sound like a nitwit. That is pretty spot on. Thank you. Yeah. So stoicism is this philosophy. A lot of Eastern, philosophies will base on this. This talk today is not about stoicism, and I want to set that clearly from the beginning. That's not where we're headed here. When we talk about effective team management,
Plot twist. Sorry.
yeah, I teed you up for that. But plot twist is we're talking about objective team management. An effective team manager is an objective team manager. That does not mean that you are emotionless, but I'm going to say the phrase that we take the emotion out of business. That's not saying there's no place for the care, the feelings, or the needs of people, but actually what we were talking about with Victor and Nicole here at the beginning, clear boundaries and expectations set up front, Jonathan mentioned as well. This is all the stuff that I want to get into and talk about today to really effectively manage a team, because the people element is whenever I'm talking to the people that we work with, the people element is the hardest part. Learning HR might be one of the harder parts about running a business, is managing people. And so that's why we want to talk about that today. So I'll get us going here. There's an analogy that I love, and you might already hear me talking about, both directions. And it's really important as we go into this topic to keep in mind holding two thoughts in tension. We don't want to overcorrect too heavily and swing one way versus the other when we talk about this. And there's a C.S. Lewis analogy that I think is really valuable. He talks about a road that has a pothole on either side. Pothole on the left, pothole on the right. If you're trying to advise somebody to help them steer clear of the pothole and they're going towards the one on the right side, you're going to tell them, hey, veer left. If you're going to talk to somebody that's going towards the left-hand side, you're going to tell them, hey, veer right. Both of those instructions are heading down the same direction. We're going towards the middle of the road, right? They sound conflicting if you take them at their face value. They sound like you're saying one thing and then saying the exact opposite, and you are. But it matters the context. So the reason I bring that up is because I want you today to hear what you need to. Not all of this that I'm going to talk about applies in the same way to everybody that's here. Some people are too emotionally tied up. Others are not enough. And again, I share this so that you know that even though some of the this may sound contradicting, we're heading in the same direction. We're trying to realign the center. But most likely, if we were to draw a spectrum on emotional management versus emotionless management, I think most of the people that we work with and most people in general are going to be heavier on that more emotional side. Even if you feel like you're not, you probably are, because frustration is an emotion. Despair is an emotion. Anxiety is an emotion. I know that we're feeling all of those things from one time or another. So with this is an analogy that I think my dad told me that stuck with me a long time. Cows are stupid. They don't think very well. They're dumber than sheep. But even a cow is smart enough to chew the grass and spit out the sticks. That's what I want to give you guys as well. Chew the grass, spit out the sticks. If there's something that doesn't apply to you, it's to somebody on the other end of the spectrum. Don't over apply it. Again, we want to try to be objective in our management of our business so that we have the ability to enforce properly. Emotion is going to come through naturally when you have your human moments, and you really should care about people's personal issues, but do so in a healthy way. Everybody with me on that? Okay, cool. Let's truck along here. So I want to build a little bit on what Caden talked about last week. He talked about hiring and firing, and our breakout room was actually really fruitful. Michael and Brent were there, and some other guys as well. And one of the things we talked about was what's harder, hiring people or firing people? And the harder thing for them and for a lot of our clients is really firing people. And that's a good thing. Jack Welch, though, says this about managing a team. If you fail to differentiate among employees and you're holding on to bottom tier performers, it's actually the cruelest form of management that there is. Why is that? It's because the rest of your team sees that there's this element of favoritism in a way, right? This guy sucks. I don't like this guy. He's terrible to be around. He's terrible to work with. And yet, for whatever reason, the boss man keeps him around. The boss man doesn't discipline him in the same way he disciplines me. I'm going to do my stuff right every time, but then the one time I step out of line, because it's unusual for me to do that, I get blown away. So how we do this is, again, removing the emotion from business, removing kind of that relationship aspect by setting clear boundaries. We want to formally document any sort of corrective actions that we have, and we have to do so without favoritism, right? We discipline and we fire right here without emotion through a process, and we have that process for you. But what I want to say with that is we have to stop being circumstantial. This is one of the Achilles heels of a small business owner. You guys, every single one of you, has built something incredible, and it's because of your adaptability, I would say. And many people would probably agree. You would probably hear that from friends and family that say, hey, you're really adaptable, or you kind of swing or roll with the punches or take it in stride. All of those things are really good. However, in this area, in managing a team, if you are circumstantial, sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, this totally undermines your ability to enforce effectively within your team. That friend, boss tension that you try to keep is undermined. So what's the action here? And I'm going to give a couple of actions. There's three main topics that we're going to hit on throughout this talk. And this is the first one, is discipline and fire without emotion through process. So what's the action? The action is to create and enforce a write-up system. Because you can have a write-up system, and we've got a process for you right here as a template procedure that's kind of the basic stuff. You can have a write-up system, but if you're not enforcing it, then it undermines that authority and respect, because you have one, but you only implement it occasionally. Quick story on this. JB Contracting is a guy that I really enjoy working with. But last year, we had to have the conversation so many times because he's human, I'm human, we're all human. You guys want to take care of the people that you brought on board. You've created a business and given them a life, or what's that called? A living, not a lifestyle. You haven't given them life, but you've provided their living by giving a source of income. But there was this overcorrected loyalty. He had a lot of bad guys on his team that were kind of taking advantage. And we kept coming back to this conversation. Hey, Justin, we have to be willing to fire, and we have to be willing to hire new people. And we have to do so through a process so that people aren't surprised. I will tell you guys, that took a long time. It took a couple months for that to actually start happening, and for those people to start to be culled out of the team. But last year, their business was operating around a 6% profit margin. This year, already at 24%. And to some of you, that may not sound huge, but that difference is what's really, really important. And that primarily, it came through other things as well, of course, but that primarily came through cutting out the bad employees. Because if you hold on to your bottom tier performers, like Jack Welch talks about, if you hold on to those bottom tier performers, they actually drag down the rest of your team. That bad seed effect is a true thing. So that's the first topic about removing emotion from enforcement in your business. You can discipline and fire without having to have that internal struggle of, I want to take care of people, I want to give people chances, so on and so forth. Do it through a system. You're being objective that way, and it's a respectable management style. Okay? Cool. Cool. Second thing here, accountability. In managing a team, you guys can speak to it even more than I can. In managing a team, one of the biggest things is just holding people accountable to what they said that they would do. So how do we do this without being emotional, without getting overly done? The last time that I spoke, I talked about tracking. You can't be emotionless, you can't be objective if you don't have numbers to tell your people what you're doing. So there's 4 things we have to do. And I won't go too deep into this. There's plenty of content elsewhere about tracking and holding your team accountable with KPIs, but I'm kind of setting the stage here and why this is effective for management. Number 1, set realistic and specific goals for your team. That can look very different for a service company versus a construction company, so on and so forth. You know, a service company, If we've never set an expectation on how many callbacks a person should have, they're not thinking about it. They have a callback this week, they have 2 callbacks next week, and then that week after they forget that they had any callbacks this month. Right? They're just not thinking about it unless we set a metric that says, hey, 3 callbacks in a month is like maximum. If you're having more than that, there's an issue. Or for construction side, hey, every time we bid a project, we budget 1 extra day on projects with the expectation that you would finish a day early. Right? That's something that we do internally so that our customers are satisfied. We can over deliver and under promise. Or setting a weekly income goal for salespeople. Hey, your expectation is to sell $17,000 on a weekly basis. That's your leveling point. Or getting Google reviews, or collecting $5,500 a week per technician per van. You just have to set realistic but specific goals, and then communicate those to your team. So we talked about team meetings at the beginning, and this is awesome that it connects. I'm actually really surprised, and that was cool that it came out this way. But Kevin talked about it. They're able to train their team and tell them what they expect and how they perform their jobs, right? This is a really important thing for managing the team effectively. If there is, I've said this before and I'll say it again because I think it's really true. If there is no way for your team to communicate an issue to you outside of blowing up your phone, that's what they're going to do. So you have to give them an avenue to do something else, and for you to be able to communicate, hey, these are the standards we hold ourselves to, not, hey, you messed up today. Next time you have a job like this, do it this way. No, this is how we do it every time. This also gives you an opportunity to review that performance regularly. A lot of what this looks like is reviewing after the fact what went well and what went poorly. And this is a kind of overall business idea, is that if you're only looking at today, every day, you can get a lot done, but you have to also prepare for the future. If you're feeling stuck, like you're spinning your wheels, that's what's happening, is you're thinking about just today. We're not reviewing what went well so we can duplicate it, and what went poorly so we can eradicate it. And then here's the last thing, and this is more of a culture thing as well. How you do accountability without emotion. You also celebrate success. What? When I get excited, that's an emotion. What are you saying, Bryce? That's contradicting. No, it's not. I'll tell you why. Because celebrating successes is a way for you to identify failures as well. It's holding all of these things in tension, and you're promoting the team's development through it. So this is our second piece before we get to the third, but we can hold our teams accountable without becoming emotional if we tell them what their goals are, if we tell them what numbers we're holding them accountable to. Then it's just a matter of following up. All right. Okay. Still with me, everybody? Okay, sweet. I know I can get some kind of long-winded sometimes, so if you have any thoughts, feel free to interject. Okay, this is the last, well, no, it's not. This is kind of a summary of the first 2 points. Good leadership is really about consistent leadership. And I kind of hinted at this at the beginning of the call, that we want to be consistent and predictable in a good way. I really like what Jonathan said when he spoke about a similar topic a couple of weeks back. When it comes to leadership, the number one thing that we can get overwhelmed by and then become emotional about is this idea that we have to be perfect as the managers. We can't mess up, and we expect perfection from other people. But the reality is, people aren't perfect. Instead, what is needed is consistency, and hopefully the positive kind, but consistency. Are you dependable? Are you reliable? Same thing from your team. That's what you want. So how can we become more consistent with what we're already doing? Everything connects to everything else. I love this quote, and I've used it a couple times. Everything connects to everything else. Jonathan said this at the beginning. Expectations set from onboarding, from day one. Okay, we missed that opportunity. We already have a team full of employees. That's fine. through policy. Roll out that write-up procedure that we talked about. Roll out these KPIs and start talking about them in your regular team meetings. But you're setting expectations before something happens. And you're doing so consistently, right? Being consistent in your leadership is about evaluating people and their performance based on KPIs. And more so, I would say, your patterns that you see, not situations. Patterns, not situations. We're looking for trends more than 1 or 2 times, but you've addressed it every time. It's not we're saying nothing until they've had three strikes. Now we have to tell them when they had the first strike. We have to tell them when they had the second strike so that there's that opportunity for adjustment and correction. So being consistent. And this is kind of the main idea for me on this point is communicate with your team beyond that moment when things are broken, when things are wrong. Because the alternative is the only time the boss talks to me is whenever I screwed up. I hate when he comes to talk to me. I hate whenever he comes around. I get anxious, I get nervous, whatever. What you communicate outside of the moment, and this is a plug for team meetings, but what you communicate outside of the moment can oftentimes do so much more than what you're able to communicate on the fly in the moment. Because putting yourself in the mind of an employee, not a business owner, right? We want to hire people that are like us, but people that are like us are also building businesses. So we're not going to have them as an employee. But putting yourself in that mindset, they're just trying to get through the day. They don't want to make any issues. They don't want to make any trouble. Whenever you tell them, hey, you should have done it this way, they're just thinking about that one job. They're not thinking about all the other jobs that they do that are similar, unless you're saying it in a team meeting environment, outside of the moment. Further with this, when you set expectations beforehand, you're not going to be considered this loose cannon. A lot of the guys that I work with, this is the feedback that they get from their team sometimes. Man, he changes with the wind. Loose cannon. One day, one thing's okay. The next day, it's not. You know, what am I supposed to do? How do I manage that? But setting expectations beforehand, you're following through with what you said you would do. It is taking that emotion out of it. It's taking, it's setting clear boundaries. Cool. Okay, one last thing I'll say here, because I think it's really valuable. We talked about this in our breakout room last week, and it actually resonated with me very deeply. So Michael, thanks for sharing this. Credit to Michael. But he said, it is actually mean to not say something. It's being mean to not say something. If we're concerned with being nice with people and taking care of them and disciplining them, it's actually negative if we say nothing. We're not helping them. Brent talked about this guy that had been on the team. Everybody had eventually come to him saying, hey, this guy sucks to work with, or for this reason, I don't want to work with this guy. And it wasn't addressed early enough. It wasn't addressed in that moment. So whenever that conversation did finally come after a couple of months, the guy who was kind of causing problems was just totally taken aback. He had no idea. So communicate beyond the time when things are broken and be consistent in the lead up. Tell them when they've hit strike 1, strike 2, strike 3, so that they can correct. So action for this slide. Have more interactions with your team that are not in the moment or on the fly. Cool. Okay, we got one more area that I want to talk about with this in talking about emotions and team management. And then I definitely want to hear from you guys in the breakout rooms. But this is somewhat the soft management skills, but it's also really practical. And I would think of this slide almost like a bonus, but still related. Scheduling your team is a task. Probably another one of the hardest things about managing a business is scheduling your team. There's before I worked at Revenue Growth, I worked at Pepsi, and one of a person's 100%, that's all they did all day, every day, was planning the schedule for the production facility. So this is a huge task in your company, and you're wearing this among your 20 other hats. But there's something that I think we can do really well to effectively manage teams as we're playing this Tetris game of scheduling. to get the most out of and for your team, despite emotions or considering emotions. Lots of stories on this one. I shared the one with Brent last week, but Clear Creek Plumbing and Gas, another company I work with, they had this one guy that was a bad seed as well, very similar to Brent's situation. That guy ended up quitting, which was helpful for them, but he ended up quitting on his own. But once that guy was gone, their whole team was more productive. They were all hitting their numbers again. For whatever reason, that guy had just been seeding dissension for the whole team. JB Contracting, I talked about earlier, 6% to 24%. He and I talked about, he had one guy that was really slow and very particular. He was too slow. And he had another guy that was too fast and making mistakes. So we paired those guys together on their construction jobs to see what would happen. It was an experiment, admittedly, and it caused some tension and frustration, but that's a way that we can think about scheduling, to be able to put guys that would be complementary together. Hometown Hauling is another guy that he just plays the game. He sees this as a game of Tetris when he schedules his team. He's only got 2 formal employees, but he's on track doing about 20,000 weekly because he just manages and moves the schedule around. When diversions come up, he finds a space for it. So examples of what this can look like specifically that are more broad is, if you're a general contractor, what does it look like to send subs off of your job site if their project portion isn't ready to be worked on? You know, you're clearing out the area. They're not clogging up space, just hanging around doing nothing. I mentioned pairing complementary employees or scheduling your technicians individually. If you've got a guy that can go on his own, schedule him on his own. There are definitely jobs when you need a partner, but try to schedule them when they're able to on their own. Give them a technician they can train with. If you've got a job that cancels, I know you guys are already doing some of this stuff, but if you got a job that cancels, putting another job there. Just looking at your schedule to see, where do I actually need all my people and where can I put my people? Okay. I know I covered a lot and it was more of a fire hose situation here and maybe a little bit sporadic, going multiple places, but this is what I wanted to cover in general with you guys, is taking the emotion out of the enforcement of your business so that you have less headaches and your team can expect more consistent results, and therefore you can expect more consistent results. We're not talking about stoicism. If I said stuff that doesn't apply to you, spit it out. If I said stuff that does apply to you, chew on it. Take it with you. But that's my piece. I'll step off my soapbox here and let Jonathan send us into breakout rooms.